Okay, thanks everyone for showing up at 9. My name is Michelle. I work for Flexible Learning at the Center for Continuing Education. And I've got some helpers here. Rhett, Kaylin, and Josh all have quite a lot of experience creating H5Ps over the last several years. And so we're here to offer both a bit of a presentation and then some hands-on time in breakout rooms. So hopefully that goes well. And feel free to interrupt me as often as you like for questions. And I think I'll just start with the presentation. Hopefully there's a few more people that show up, but if not, they can always watch the recording. I often do that, sign up for a bunch of different sessions and then just watch the recording. So it's a thing, I guess. I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, and actually, before we get started, maybe in the chat, if you could put, do you already have a Pressbook or to work in today? Or you can also work in a UR Courses site if once we get to the part of the workshop that's hands-on. Okay, Joyce, you have a Pressbook. That's good. How about Mitch? Okay, that's okay. Do you have access to a UR Courses site today? And also, oh, that's great. And also, too, if you don't, oh, that's okay. As long as, yeah, if you don't, no worries. Yeah, and also feel free. This has been scheduled for an hour and a half, but that's quite a bit of time to carve out. So I understand if anyone has to leave early, that's fine too. I have access to a UR Courses and not Pressbooks. That's perfect. Yeah, because H5P is also in UR Courses as well. So, okay. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, so I put the presentation in a Pressbooks just for practice. Can everyone see my screen? I actually can't see the chat anymore, so that's great. Hey, let me see if I can.
Yes, yep, can see the screen, all good.
Okay, great. Actually, I'm gonna just move, now I'm gonna make my chat screen bigger so I can keep an eye on that as well. Okay, perfect. All right, so H5P. I just swiped this from the H5P website, and the website is h5p.org. And their goal is to enable everyone to create better content faster, to empower everyone to create, share, and reuse interactive content. And it really is, like, we've been using H5Ps at CCE in our fully online courses for several years now. And we were introduced to H5Ps by our UR Courses admin person, Trevor Cunningham, and we kind of just embraced it and went off from there. And since starting to use H5Ps, the amount of content types has really increased as well. And we'll talk about that later. So why bother using H5Ps? It's free, it's open source, and it creates HTML5 interactive content that you can use on a website. But for our purposes, it would be learning management systems such as UR Courses and also Pressbooks, publishing platforms. The good part about H5P is the energy you put into the creation of them. They can be easily, most of them can be easily moved between the learning management system as well as your Pressbooks, so you can kind of get double use out of them, whatever you create. They can also help ease copyright issues in the sense that most H5Ps have an area where you can keep track of the copyright. So for example, when you're using images, so that, if you ever have to go back and you need to find out where you took that image from, there's all sorts of places where you can track your copyright information. They're also very easy, some are very easy to create and compatible between platforms, meaning, you can use them both in your courses and Pressbooks and websites, etc. So as I had mentioned, there are over 50 types right now, and there are varying levels of difficulty in their creation, but even I would say the more complex ones aren't that difficult. I think the goal of H5P is very fill in the blank kind of, there's no customization. You get what you get in an H5P. And so sometimes that can be limiting, but it can also be very accessible to almost anyone who wants to create interactive content, which is great. So on the H5P website, there is a list of all of the different types of content that you could create. Some very easy, such as, a bit of an accordion to make a page less overwhelming to a reader, to, some are K to 12 based, like an advent calendar, of course. Some can get really complicated, this is a new one, augmented reality scavenger hunt. Like, can you imagine that for geology? That'd be awesome. And collage, that one would be very easy in the sense that if you have a Pressbook and you wanted to create a very professional looking visual, that would be super easy. So this would be the different content types here. Drag the words, essay, find multiple hotspots. So if you've got a graph or an image and you wanted a student to identify certain parts of that image, that one could play a role. I have to admit, I haven't used all 50. I tend to stick with maybe 12. After seeing this list, though, I do have a bit of a poll question. So I am going to first, now how do I launch? Oh, I have to launch all the questions at once. Okay, well, that's not going to work. Okay, so in the chat, if you could we'll just use the chat because it's a small group. Who here is new to H5P? Or not new, have created a few? Tried it once. Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm new. Okay, great. New. Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to create some today. And then just take a look at this list. Is there any that spark your interest on this list? I can't guarantee that we'll have an example for it, but
I'm kind of intrigued by the hotspot one, Michelle.
Okay. Yeah, we've got examples of that for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We'll make sure to go slow on that example. We've also used Timeline quite a bit. We've got some examples of Timeline coming up as well. Kaylin, I think you used interactive video, did you not? I haven't used that one yet.
Yeah, I have used interactive video quite a few times. So I've used it in instances where instructors like lecturing in their video. And so to kind of keep students engaged, something we would do is like pause the video and ask a question related to like something that was just taught. And then it gave the instructor an idea of whether or not the students were understanding the concept. And it also gave them an idea if the students were watching the video.
Right.
But yeah, it went over well.
Sneaky. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, so there's 50 different types. Also, too, there's layers of the types. So for example, as Kaylin was mentioning in the interactive video, or even a course presentation, which is up at the top, you can have H5Ps within H5Ps. So it can get really layered. So, in your interactive video H5P, you could potentially have a, mark the words activity or a summary activity. So you can also use more than one at a time. So why use? I think we talked a little bit about this, but it's an easy way to add visuals to text, especially in a textbook. It also can help with engagement. It's another way of presenting content. Very often when we create books in, not Pressbooks, but books in a fully online course, there's quite a bit of text. And so it's just a way of presenting content in a different way. You can also use them for test your knowledge at the end of a unit or end of a chapter. It can be good for learning self-check, formative assessment, and it can really customize the learning experience in the sense that, you know, we've got one where Josh is our what's the H5P called? Branching activity H5P expert.
I think it's a branching scenario is what it's called.
Branching scenario and that's kind of like choose your own adventure. Hey, Josh, where you present a problem and then they can go off in different directions and then it can weave them back in, and they're in charge of their learning experience.
Yeah, we built it in a philosophy course where the instructor made it a murder mystery activity. So he's, you know, teaching them philosophy through this little fictional, you know, had we not done it in a branching scenario, it would be like a 5-minute read or so max, but we decided to make it a bit more in depth and give those options of variability for the students. And he's ran it for a few semesters now, and his students always seem to really enjoy it. So
yes, murder mystery using logic. So yeah, it can really customize the learning experience. It also, you know, something like a murder mystery that takes 20 minutes for a student to complete is, you know, at a certain complexity, but it also can add very low stake tasks for learners at a very easy basic level at the end of a page, just like a one quick question check-in based on what they've read up above kind of thing too. So it's a bit of a spectrum. It can be super low stakes, and then it can be also very involved. They're also device responsive in the sense that they will resize for phones, tablets, computer screens, etc. So that's always good. Accessibility, most of them are accessible. There are a few listed that are not. And so in some of those, one of them is the hotspot, Joyce. But then in that situation, if it is core content, what we do, what I did in that situation is just provide a link to a page as an alternative in case someone is having an accessibility issue with that particular H5P. So there's ways around that. What it's not recommended for is summative quizzing because of accommodations. You can't get, you know, because students, it shows the solution most of the time. I think on some you can control that. Students can actively, you know, retake them over and over again. So it wouldn't be something, you could create a quiz, but it would be more of a study quiz, non-graded. It wouldn't be a good solution for graded quizzes because of the accommodations needed for some students. It's also not necessarily the greatest for computational questions or formula marking, however, and number interpretation. However, we have used it successfully in a Japanese class. And so for characters and things like that, it's pretty accepting of all sorts of characters. So that's great. Just not, you know, the computation part of it, you know, formula adding and that kind of thing. I will give you access to this particular presentation. It's a Pressbook, and I do have a link, and it's, I think, by UBC or maybe H5P.org themselves, and it just will list the accessibility per content type in case you need that. But as mentioned, you know, for that one H5P type that you might be using, you could always provide text as an alternative. Some ideas of how we've used it, and I'll show you in a few minutes, is taking, if there's a certain area within your textbook or your course that is very complex and you might need some extra visuals, it can help with that. We've used it in courses where there's a reoccurring case study, and so it kind of visually separates out the case study from the rest of the content. And then again, as I've mentioned several times, it's just a way of helping learners to apply the concept that they just read to a scenario or a question or something. And there are some very complex H5Ps, but you don't have to be overwhelmed. The easy ones are super easy, fill in the blank, and that's what we're going to create today. And then also too, once you have created a few, you get your bearings in that H5P environment, and you're good to go. The way our group has learned H5P is through the H5P website. So on the website, there is a basic section. And so I have a link for that in the presentation that I can send out afterwards. But you are really literally only one click away from a tutorial on the H5P that you choose, as well as an example of how it could be used. Now, some of the examples are like very simple K-12, but it gives you an idea of how it could be used. And so when you're creating an H5P, there are these two links, tutorial and the example, right there in every H5P. So if you're having trouble creating it or just need to know more about that particular H5P, the tutorials are great. It takes you step by step through every aspect of creating that H5P. So I think I'll stop here for questions. Are there any questions before I get into showing some examples of what we've created here for our online courses? And you can put them in the chat if you don't want to turn your mic on. Yeah, the timeline, we've used the timeline even for non-timeline related things, if that makes sense. And I think I have an example of that as well. No, no questions? Okay. All right. So I think I've got one more slide. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to look at a few of our examples, and then what we'll do after the examples is we'll go in breakout rooms, and then you can talk to either Rhett, Kaylin, or Josh or myself, and we can get you get specific questions answered, or if you want to try creating some H5Ps, we can walk you through that as well. So in this book, I just threw this in here. Actually, Isaac found it, and it's really interesting. It is a list of all of the H5Ps listed from easy all the way to more complex. But what is really nice about this particular H5P is, so we've got here easy to create all the way to some work to create all the way.
Share your screen, Michelle.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thanks, Kaylin. So here is H5Ps, easy to difficult, and then how to use them, which is awesome. So we've got a section here where they're easy to create, some that need a bit more work to create, and then, you know, the branching scenario, I think is this one right here. If I go to this, it was created by Stuart Mueller, I believe. I'm not sure. He's with eLearning World. But if I just click on it, it's, you know, an interactive about interactives, which I think is cute. So it looks like it has 47 types. He's missing 3. And so like if I hover my mouse over each one of them, you know, that's collage, a bit more information about collage, or here's one on dialogue cards. So if I click on dialogue cards as an example, it will tell you a little bit about the dialogue card content type, and then how, you know, an application for it can be used in language learning. I have an example of that. Presenting problems, we also have an example of that, and drilling to learn facts. So very handy just to even explore this. All right, so let's get to some examples. So we've got some UR examples. These were created for fully online courses that were DDL funded, and the instructors have given us permission to share these interactives. So the first example is the dialogue cards. So it's text-based cards that you can turn. You can add optional sound. And so this is an example in Japanese. We did a set of kanji cards, and I don't have the sound in my screen share, but when you click on the sound, it would be the instructor reading the word, and then the student can turn over the card and find out, if they got it right or wrong. What's nice about the dialogue cards is you can turn the right or wrong on or off. And so you could potentially create a stack of virtual cards, and then students can keep track of which ones they're getting right and wrong, and then just focus on the ones that they need to really study a bit more. So that's dialogue cards. And this is a stack of 33 of them for a unit in Japanese 101. We have a psychology example of stereotypes versus reality. And so here's an example of, a stereotype: bank robber, clever, debonair, skillful, glamorous, when in reality, when you turn it, they're usually young, impulsive, drug use, et cetera, et cetera. And so dialogue cards don't necessarily have to be testing a student on a specific, definition. It could also be a different way of presenting content. All right. The next one we have, and dialogue cards are very easy to create. That would be on the easy side. Drag and drop is probably a little bit more difficult because you have to come up and create this background image here. So we have an economics example where we've got different categories, and then students have to drag and drop. I'm going to get these all wrong, I can tell you right away here. We would drag and drop the the concepts into the right category. And let's just see how poorly I've done. Oh, there you go. And there's always a retry button, etc. We've also used it in social work classes. So, here are concepts down below, and then, what would be family support, what would be end of life decisions, what would be procedural. So it can across various fields of study. Again, we used it in Japanese for her time exercise. So they would be dragging and dropping what time it is. I'm scared to hit the check button, so I'll just leave that. So that's drag and drop. Image juxtaposition is very low stakes, but it can be for content in the sense, here's a geography example where we've got Pipestone Creek Cross Drainage Basin on one side, that's this image. And then on this side, the image is the Pipestone Creek Effective Drainage Basin. And then students can drag the slider to compare the gross and the effective drainage basin. So it's above my knowledge on basin drainage, but it's just another way of presenting content. I believe the instructor just had both images in their course, and the images were the exact same size. And so you can overlay one image on top of another, which is very interesting. We've also done that for an art history example. So anytime you've got a series of images that are relatively the same, but it's just showing something slightly different, image juxtaposition might be the way to go. It's only for two images though. So here we've got, what the Earth had, for ice 18,000 years ago versus today. And on a very superficial level, you can even use it for images, women's movement then, women's movement now. So it's just a different way of presenting a couple of images. And this one's very easy to create. Timeline. So we have a timeline here for a religious studies course. And students would use the arrows here to navigate through the timeline. The timeline can be, just images or images and text. I'm not sure. I don't think we can add video in a timeline, but I could be wrong on that. But this, I'm not sure exactly what story this is telling. I didn't get the title, but obviously it has to do with Germany. And so it's just a different way. You can kind of see here, the students could potentially veer away from the chronologicalness of the timeline and go directly to the different areas of the timeline. Or they can go through it chronologically as well. So we have that in a religious studies example. In this one, we used a social work course was doing a wrap-up unit, and they wanted to just remind the students about the various places that they traveled for the course. And so this is an example of, it's not really a timeline per se, but it's, the different modules that they explored for that particular course. It was a way of wrapping up the course. And then here we have a business example where they were talking about the different generations, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, etc. Lots of possibilities with timelines. Hotspots. So there's a few different hotspot types. So there's image hotspots. There's also find the hotspot. And then there's finding multiple hotspots. So this would be an example of finding multiple hotspots. Let's see what we have to do here. The map shows 2 triple divides that are labeled with names. Can you find the 2 other examples of a triple divide? So then students would, oh, I got it right away. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. So there's 2. There we go. So you can have right and wrong answers on your hotspots. We used it in economics. So in this situation here, the instructor had, several paragraphs explaining this particular graph. And they would ask students, like, look at point, E, and that's called the whatever. And so what we did is we left the text there, but we also then went in and identified each point on the graph so that they could make sure that they were at the right spot with the text. So like, for example, this D to C, what's that? That's the slope, that kind of thing. So you can use it on graphs. We used it in a political science example showing the different various parts of the House of Commons, who sits where, that kind of thing. With the hotspots, though, you can also incorporate video, which is kind of nice. So if you, and this is where it can get multi-layered, you can read about the page is and what they do. And then you can also input video as well. So it can get very layered quite quickly, which is nice. And it is relatively easy to create. And then this is just an example of having some fun in a Japanese class where they had to learn everything about a bedroom. So we just took Van Gogh's bedroom and they were just learning parts of the bedroom. There's just 2 more. We'll go to course presentations. This one's very, very common. And this is where you can take a presentation and then, so you pick course presentation and then you can add additional H5Ps within the presentation. So in this example here, I won't go through all the examples, but in this example here, again, it's the economics class, and it's going to take students through a series of questions that they have to ask themselves. So economics in action. In this particular unit, or in every unit, this instructor had an economics in action section. So kind of like an interactive section after the chapter. You know, so this is a multiple choice question, H5P in the course presentation. In a sale, a shop is selling all items at half price, et cetera, how much would it cost in the sale? If the chance of getting a disease is 10%, how many people of it 1,000 would be expected? So that kind of thing, bit of test your knowledge. Also too, this is the exact same course presentation, but without any questions. And this was just a different way. Every unit in economics had a COVID-19 case study. And so then this was just a different way of presenting that material, separating it out from the regular text for the case studies. And so there's nothing fancy about this, it's just text, but it's getting students to click through it, and it can also be very visual in nature. As you can see, there's different backgrounds. And you can include links as well as images as well. And then the very last one is flashcards. It's similar to dialogue cards. This is a philosophy example. Identify if the reasoning is inductive or deductive, and then students would just type in their answer. And then we also used it in an anthropology class as well. This one's a bit more limiting in the sense that they have to type the word exactly correct, but when they hit the check button, they'll know how close they got. And you know, as mentioned, there's 50 different types. So we've only shown you 7, but there's many more examples that could be done. And I don't have the branching scenario set up to access from this Pressbook, but that one would take a while to create. Any questions so far before we break out into the breakout rooms? I have to open up my chat, I think. Feel free to turn your mic on. No. Okay, so before we go into the breakout rooms, I will just do a bit of creation here, and then we'll break you out into the breakout rooms. So the first thing that you want to do in a Pressbook is have a book created, and then you have to, in your courses, H5P is already there for you to use as part of a blank course. So you don't have to do this for your courses, but in Pressbooks, you have to initiate the H5P plugin, and it has to be the book owner that does it. So if I click on this, it'll just show us, you know, first you need a book, but if you don't, like once you have a book, you would be adding the plugin, which is on the side here. So I can go into my Pressbook here. Can you still see my screen? Yeah. Yes, no?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this is my Pressbook, the H5P presentation that I'm giving. And on the side menu within a Pressbook, there is plugins. So I've already added my H5P plugin, so that's why I see H5P content. But if you have a brand new book, you would have to go to the plugins area. And H5P is listed with several other plugins. And then you would just hit the activate button right below H5P. And it'll ask you a consent question. And then once you have H5P activated for your book, then you will see this H5P content area. And in the content area, it keeps track of all the H5Ps you have in your Pressbook. So if I click on all of my H5P content, we can see here all of the H5Ps I've added to this particular book. So it's a bit of a library, and you can add new from this library. And so that's what we're going to do today in breakout rooms. I'll maybe add 2 right now, and then we'll split into breakout rooms. So I'm just going to click the Add New button here. And this interface, this H5P content type selector, this is the exact same both in Pressbooks as well as your courses. This is the H5P environment. And so here is listed all 50 of the content types. And let's say I wanted to, use the collage content type. I just have to hit the Get button and it downloads a little bit of whatever so that I can use it. Again, in your courses, they're all downloaded for you. And also not all 50 are available in your courses. I think most of them, yeah, there are 52 here available in Pressbooks. So they have them all. So let's say I wanted to use collage, I would just hit Get. There's also a bit of a demo that you can take a look at, but I'll hit Install. And then you're ready to use it. Once you install it, if I go back, it will just be ready to use for the next time. So this is sort of like a one-time, get the content type that you want. I thought I was going to show you, which was one of the easiest ones to create is not drag the words, is it drag and drop? No.
I think it was drag the words. Maybe.
Is it drag the words?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kaylin. Drag the words. Okay, this is probably the most easiest one to create. So again, I had mentioned H5P is fill in the blank. So we're just going to start filling in the blanks. So the title, I will just use H5P presentation. But you can have whatever title you want. Drag the words into the correct boxes. You can also customize, what it is that you want students to do. So, this is completely customizable, but I'm just going to leave it as is because this is a pretty simple one. And then here, it's telling you what you need to do. So the instructions are here. There is a video in the tutorial on how to do it, but basically you are just taking a regular paragraph of text and placing it in this box. And every place you put stars around the words, that's going to take that word and make it a movable object. So I'm going to type the sky is blue. So the word blue is going to be off to the side. I don't know, sky is blue, grass is green, and flower is. These can be as long as short paragraphs, and the star is what will separate that out. You can also add contextual tips if you wanted. So we use that in a social work class because we had a bunch of statistics and students could, do their initial guess, but to guess out of 100% is kind of large. So we had contextual tips to say, somewhere between 70 and 90% to kind of give them a bit of a hint. And that you would add a colon for that. But at the very basic level, just the stars is good enough. And then I will hit the create button on the side. And we've got our H5P and we've got the, the purple, blue, and green, and students can check. When you create an H5P in Pressbooks, you get an H5P ID. So this is the 37th H5P I've created in this particular book. This is the code that you add onto the book page that you want this H5P to live. So I can copy this And then I would go to the page in my book that I wanted this hotspot H5P or this drag and drop to live. Let's say I wanted it, I don't know, on this page here. I would edit my page. And anywhere on the page I wanted it to show up, let's say I wanted it to show up at the bottom here, you would just drop your code. You don't even have to do that. You could just even use add the H5P button at the top here, and that takes you to your library where you can then just find the one that you just created. And then once I save this, and then I'll just visit the book. I think I'll just visit the page. And so here's the page in Pressbooks, and you can see that that has been added. Super simple. I think what I'll do now is I will put you in breakout rooms with Kaylin, Josh, and Rhett, and you can ask specific questions about H5Ps, your field of study, and the different types of content. They can help you create a couple of H5Ps, and we'll go from there. So if you don't want to stick around for the studio time, feel free to leave, but whoever stays, I'll start the breakout rooms. Any questions so far? And again, you can use your courses course to create the H5Ps if you don't have a Pressbook. No problem, Janine. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here. And so who do we have left? Joyce and Jeanette want to be together, and okay, so I'm going to, oh, there's a new message here. Sorry, I have another meeting. No problem, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to, we have got more helpers than participants, that's okay. I will just make 2 breakout rooms, one for myself, and I guess, you know, you guys want to draw straws for, I guess we only need one of you.
I don't think it matters.
Okay, maybe we'll do 2. One person stays with me, and then, okay, let's do that.
Yeah, do one of us goes with,
Yeah.
2 of us goes with in each room type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Good idea. Okay, so I need 2 breakout rooms. Isaac, you can hang out with us. Assign manually. Okay, create. This is stretching my ability here. Okay, so we're gonna put Josh and Rhett and Joyce and Janine in one room. Goodbye. And also too, if this is your first breakout room, it takes just a few minutes, so don't panic.